Hello everyone, it's Jared again, back with another video. So yet another video about the Southport incident. We have to talk about this because it's very important. I'm sure most of you have seen the public statement that Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, has made. It was just a whole load of excuses. I mean, you can see in the comments down below the video of how publicly outraged everyone is by his catastrophic failure. Keir Starmer is trying to cover his own failures, his own incompetence, by skirting around certain details and just giving a whole load of excuses, telling lies, not telling the truth, gaslighting the general public, using other things to scapegoat as scapegoats and throwing the baby out with the bathwater, essentially. He's covering essential details. I just hate how he shifted the blame all towards the incompetence of the investigative authorities. You know, who's funding these investigations? It's the government. It's the police. It's the authorities who are funding the police, who are funding the investigators, who are putting in all the resources so that they are able to investigate this. The incompetence, the failure, is on you, Keir Starmer. Is in your hands. He kept on accusing the far right, this term far right, don't know what that means, of perpetrating violence. And the key issue that he had was that the violence, the outrage from the general public was purely at the hands of the perpetrators, throwing bricks at police officers and shouting hurty words, setting things on fire. And he kept on accusing them. He kept on condemning the violence and trying to push the main topic away. The whole crux of the matter, which is Axel Rudikabana, the perpetrator of this most heinous crime. It is an act of terrorism. Why can't he admit this? And the fact that he was trying to convince the public to keep key details hidden at the beginning. And he thinks that this was crucial so as not to jeopardize the investigation. Well, I'm sorry, Keir Starmer, but you're wrong. It is your failure that has caused public outrage. The fact that he was saying his decisions to keep the details hidden are tied to the law of the land. So the law of the land, the judicial system, is keeping him from doing his job to reassure the general public, to not cause public outrage. This is exactly what caused public outrage to Keir Starmer. Of you hiding the details. You know, even the journalist at the end, the ones asking questions, one of them was saying, don't the neighbours living next to this Taylor Swift dance concert, don't the neighbours living next to Axel Rudikabana's apartment or his flat, wherever he was living, don't they deserve to know that there was ricin, there was a deadly toxin being produced in a home next to theirs? Shouldn't they be aware of, shouldn't they have the right to be aware of the fact that there was a known terrorist who had committed such an atrocious act that was found in possession of terrorist material? The public deserve to know that. These are key details, and they won't jeopardize the trial. They won't jeopardize the investigation. How do you know that? The public have the right to know this. It's just absolutely unacceptable. He was mentioning the motivating factor. This is what really angered me, this part, when he said the motivating factor to Axel Rudikabana committing these crimes was due to exposure to extreme incidents of violence online. So lone wolves, lone individuals being exposed to online content, pertaining to extreme violence, graphic images, graphic videos, violent acts, acts of general, acts of violence, and that this is the cause or the factor to how this whole incident unfolded and how it happened. He's completely gaslighting the general public. No, Sir Keir Starmer. This is a terrorist act. Axel Rudikabana had a plan in hand. There was a prevailing ideology behind this whole incident. At the hands, these victims, these poor victims, these 3 innocent girls, died at the behest of a terrorist. This is the truth. Why do you have to hide the truth? Why do you have to skirt around it? Why do you have to skirt around the terminology of terrorism, and instead shifting it all to the blame towards the investigative authorities, keeping details hidden, blaming the far right, and saying that lone individuals who don't have a family, who don't have friends, are exposed to online content involving violence, and this is what causes incidents like this. Axel Rudikabana was referred to the Prevent programme on 3 occasions. How could this incident not be prevented if the authorities just simply did their jobs? How is this possible? This just completely demonstrates how incompetent and how utterly despicable and useless this government is in dealing with threats like this. I'm so angry, guys. Keir Starmer saying that this was a unique threat, a new cohort, a new threat, which is completely different, isolated, different from the usual incidents related to terrorism. For example, terrorist acts committed by known organised terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups that we know of. Shifting all the blame towards, again, the authorities, the investigation. There is no accountability, no compassion, no empathy in Keir Starmer. You can see it in his eyes. He's trying to gaslight and divert attention away from the main crux of the matter. The crucial issue was that this was not a unique threat. This is an act of terrorism. It's not a new threat. The fact that he was skirting and dancing around the terminology of the word terrorism, saying that he was answering journalists' questions and saying that we need to be careful how we define the word terrorism, and this incident that Axel Rudikabana perpetrated was completely separate from the framework of definition that we associate terrorism with. Just absolute gaslighting, lying to the public, an absolute failure. This is complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. This is our Prime Minister talking. Towards the end, answering the journalists' questions, keeps on describing it as an incident involving extreme violence. He keeps on repeating that. This is a clear act of extreme violence, clearly intended to terrorise, and involving intentional harm. No mention of Islam, no mention of Islamic ideology, of the doctrine, of the harm of that sick belief. No mention of it, Islamic extremism, of terrorism. This is an incident involving terrorism. Simple, end of conversation, nothing to discuss, nothing to argue about. The public have the right to know about these details. They cannot be hidden. And the general public are still outraged by this. And I'm afraid that if anything happens in the future involving this case at the hands of Keir Starmer, his decisions, his silly, stupid decisions that he's making, providing a whole load of excuses, this will cause civil war, inevitably. That is not what we want. It will cause divide even within our own communities, within our own right-wing political spectrum. Is this what we want in a first world country like the United Kingdom? No, it's not. So this one incident has caused so much controversy, has caused so much conflict of strife, public outrage, and the government really needs to take accountability of this. And in my previous video, I spoke about this. We need a full inquiry, a really meticulous, well thought out, organised, processed inquiry into everything pertaining to this incident. How was it caused? What Axel Rudikabana's true background is? What are his links with Islamic extremism, with terrorism? Where was the government corruption, the coercion of violence on our streets caused by the general public outrage, and just the silencing of free speech? How was this possible? What is the government still hiding? How do they know? How many details are not known to the general public, and that the government are intentionally keeping well hidden under the rugs? We need to know about this. Leave your comments down below. I'd love to see what you guys think. But I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching the video. Bye bye.